All right, so you are getting ready to start your research for your persuasive project. And before you can do that, you need to know how to properly do research. And for many of you, that's not something that you've had to do before. So the first thing you need to do is identify your search questions, which is basically what is it that you really want to know about your topic, and it needs to be specific. So if my topic is should we go to school 4 days a week from now on, like forever, um, then the questions I'm going to type into Google are not, should we go to school 4 days a week? Because what I'm going to get are a lot of opinions. Instead, I'm going to come up with my specific claims or specific reasons why I think we should. So maybe I'm going to say it will save the county money. So then I might look up specifics. How much money does it cost to um, provide electricity to the building 4 days a week versus 5 days a week? How much does it cost to, provide, I don't know, substitutes for doctor's appointments when teachers have to leave for that kind of stuff? Whatever it might be. I might look up benefits of a 4 day week, but you're going to find specifics that you can ask. Do not type in your question. If you come up to me and say, I just can't find anything good, and I look in your search history and it shows that you typed in exactly what your topic is, then you're not following instructions for one, but you put too broad of a search question in, and you are seeking out other people's opinions. I need you to search facts to support your opinion. So then you need to make sure you're finding reliable sources. And Google is not a source. I've said that so many times this year, but Google is a search engine. It provides you with sources. It gives you a list of other sources you can use. But when you cite sources, you cannot say you got the information from Google. You did not get it from Google. Google gave you the sites. So, the best way to find a reliable source is start by looking at the ending of the site URL. You know, that bar across the top, www dot, and then whatever the address is. If it ends in .edu, then it's from an educational site or source. Usually that's a school. Could be a college as well. So if you're researching something about college costs, then a .edu is probably going to be a very reliable source. .gov is a government site or source, typically reliable if you're looking up information for the government or laws, but it can be skewed based on which office you're looking at and what kind of information you're trying to find. .org is put out by an organization or a group-sponsored site or source. And .net and .com are public sites and sources, so anybody can create those and make them. Do not use Wikipedia. As I like to say, wiki is icky because anybody can type anything in Wikipedia. Anybody can make changes. I've made changes to Wikipedia before. So you cannot trust who's saying what. Several years ago, I remember when I was in college, it made the news that somebody had gone on to the Canton, North Carolina Wikipedia page and typed in that the town like honored Smurfs, and so they painted every house blue, and they like everyone dyed their hair blue, and everything about the town was blue. And that's what you found if you searched Canton, North Carolina on Wikipedia. That is entirely false. As many of you know, if you've driven to Asheville, you've driven by Canton, um, and you know that's not the case. So do not use Wikipedia at all. Don't cite Wikipedia. Don't look at Wikipedia. It's icky. Wiki is icky. It's horrible. You'll also find primary and secondary sources. Every source you find is either going to be a primary source or a secondary source. It must fall into one of those categories. So, a primary source is a first hand account from someone who was there, someone who experienced it. It could be journals, newspapers, videos, interviews, or documents from that time. So, if you were doing a research paper about the founding of our country and you're using the Declaration of Independence, that is a primary source. If you're reading a diary from Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, that is a primary source. It's from someone who was there who experienced it. A secondary source is researched material. It's secondhand material. That's how you can get that secondary, secondhand. It's like hand-me-downs. So it comes from a textbook, a book, a movie. So if I have the diary of George Washington, then that's a primary source. But if I have a book about George Washington, that's a secondary source. Then once you get to the pages, you need to watch out for bias. And if you're not familiar with bias, bias is where somebody could skew something or kind of get you to believe something based on false information or in a way that they would benefit. So you need to ask yourself, who made this site? What message are they trying to get across? When was the site made? And why was the site made? And that's the key there. So, like in years past, I had somebody want to do something about the cost of like medical expenses or something about curing diseases. And if the site is made by maybe somebody who profits, like a corporation, pharmaceutical corporation that profits off of that illness, they might skew it so that it looks like medicine's cheaper and the research into it is far more expensive and they'll put it off like it's not worth it, that kind of thing. But if you're somebody with that illness or in the research company, you're going to look at it as the way that the pharmaceuticals are too expensive or however it might be. So you need to look at what are they trying to argue and what are they trying to get across. Do they have something to gain from this, or are they just giving you the facts? So then as you do your research, you're going to take notes. And there are lots of different styles of notes. This picture here is just an example of the Cornell 2-column notes, which is what a lot of people like to use, but you by no means have to do this. It just helps you organize it. So as you're taking notes, you're going to write down the most important information. And if you're going to put quotes from a website, like copying and pasting direct information, then you need to mark that. So I've had people put it in quotes. I've had people that will highlight stuff that they've copy and pasted directly. As long as you know stuff that is word for word the same from a website, that it can be distinguished, then that's okay. That way you know to cite that properly in your research later. But you're going to make sure that you're writing down important information in the quotes and you write down where you got the information. And you can separate this by source or question. So if you're looking at this style of note over here, let me turn on my laser pointer. You might have some of your topics over here with the details that you've researched. And maybe instead of summary, you have the website you got it from. I've also had people in the same way do the website, like off on this side, and then all the information they got, and then the next website and all the information they got. As long as you can find your information accurately with where you got it. And don't just write down the name of the website, especially those of you that are choosing to do your notes on Google Docs, which I think most of you will. Just copy and paste the URL into your Google Docs. That URL is the website address up in the search bar. Copy and paste that exactly into your doc, and that will help you so much when it comes time to cite your sources. That will not be your citation, but there's a website we'll use that if you have that website address, it will save you so much time. And I say this every time, and usually about 80% of the people listen to me, and they finish their works cited page in about 10 minutes. And the other 20% that didn't copy down the URL address, it takes them about 2 days to make their works cited page. So definitely make sure you don't forget that. So when you do your citations, like I said, you have to cite your sources. Anything taken directly from a text needs to be in quotation marks. So if it's word for word the same as on the page that you got it from, it must be in quotation marks. If you don't put quotes, you're plagiarizing. That's illegal. If you paraphrase, that's when you take stuff and maybe change one or two words, but it's the same basic idea. You still need to cite your source. You still need to tell me where you got it. It just doesn't need to be in quotations. And citations are shown in parentheses. They do not have the entire URL. All this is stuff we'll go over when we talk about how to cite sources. And we'll use this link that I've got here for Citation Machine, which, look, I've written so many papers and I still use that site. It will save you so much time as long as you have that URL, I promise. So examples for how this might look. It says, because the Big Mac has about 540 calories, comma, then in quotes, the sandwich alone meets more than 1/4 of your daily calorie needs. And then they put the end quote, and that's their citation. That's where they got the information, is from this author. And you can actually see the citation is down here, but it's just the author's last name is all that's needed, not the entire URL. That would take forever. They also noticed they didn't just put a whole paragraph of information, they added the information into the sentence, correct? Or it could say, this one obviously doesn't have quotes. They're going to paraphrase. They're taking information that they learned from this website and putting it in their own words. The Big Mac has 540 calories, which is more than 25% of the daily needed calories. So again, you see this right up here. If you add fries and a drink, which most people do, the calories only increase. Depending on the sizes you choose, you could add anywhere from 340 to 790 calories to your meal. That means your meal at McDonald's could end up being 1,330 calories. I still had to cite my source, even though nothing was directly quoted from the website. Anything that is not common knowledge must be cited. And then this is how the citation will look. Again, I'll show you how to do that later. So then the last slide here, you're going to organize your research for writing. And I'll have a graphic organizer for you as you do this. But you're going to be able to take the information that you've researched and decide what's the most important, what order you want it in your paper. And we'll kind of go word for word, paragraph for paragraph as we put this together. All your citations will be at the end of your paper. And again, I can't say this enough, do not copy and paste. I do not want to see someone else's writing. It's okay if you have a couple of sentences here and there that are in quotations and cited properly, but if you are putting word for word somebody else's work, that is plagiarism. It will receive a 0. I will not grade somebody else's work. I will only grade yours. So that is how to properly do research, and now you should be able to begin your own research.